Then of course there's everyone's new favorite word, the metaverse. And obviously Meta, Facebook, is driving, well, they've got a lot of money invested in kind of building this out, but they're not the only player. There's a lot of people, a lot of companies that are doing this kind of thing, right? Your virtual meeting rooms, your shared environments, your shared experiences. Um, there's something to be said for having a virtual, meeting room or a virtual sort of space where you're gesturing, right? You're gesturing, you're virtually patting each other on the back, virtually high-fiving, um, and kind of walking around a space and um, physically pointing at things, right? That's huge. And so that's starting to become, more and more prevalent, right? There's like Facebook Horizons, um, yeah, there's all kinds of virtual meeting rooms and virtual spaces that are coming up. Um, and of course, these run the gamut from like being slightly more realistic to very stylized. The Facebook sort of approach to going super stylized and super cutesy. So somebody's all right. So what benefits can VR offer? Now, I put this picture here as a joke, but it's something I think we've all sort of seen. It's something we've all experienced firsthand. Um, so training and education, right? When you're sorry, I think somebody's not on mute. Okay. So when you're looking at training and education, when you're delivering some training, um, having having a flat screen and sort of like a quiz, right, or a lecture that's being delivered, sort of ironically, such as this, there is there's a certain amount of there's only a certain amount of concentration that they can give over a span of time, over a span of the day, when you're sort of just consuming. Um, Having a VR training or VR education immediately kind of gets you more engaged, right? Immediately keeps you more awake and focused. I've definitely fallen asleep in lectures when I was in college. I have never fallen asleep with a VR headset on my face. But take from that what you will. But typically, as I mentioned with the vehicle simulations and sort of equipment training, being able to physically, to physically look around and see your environment, to physically see the equipment that you're interacting with, and then physically reach out and touch it, flip switches, press things, makes a huge difference in how you're actually learning. Right, you're actually doing. You're not just sort of consuming and kind of clicking buttons. Um, the other big thing is that it's also more cost effective than like physical mock-ups. I've spoken to like defense contractors that have been running virtual trainings, and to fly like, let's say, an engine, right, or say a piece of equipment to test um, engines on a like an F-16, let's say, to fly something out to a location is hugely expensive. There's insurance, there's the transport costs, and there's all this, and there's only so many pieces of those equipment that you can actually fly out. Whereas with virtual, you've got something that you can just have everybody. You can have like 20 people running those trainings at the same time, getting the same or similar muscle memory and spatial awareness. And the other thing is safety. Um, Working on an engine virtually versus physically, you know, at least for the initial phases. There's no getting around the fact that you will need physical, actual, equipment training. Um, but having this virtual training allows you to kind of get over to that initial hurdle. The first 100 hours, or let's say. Now there's also interactive and actually also non-interactive entertainment. Now, some of the benefits of this include like your immersiveness, right? The immersiveness actually kind of runs through all of these as a common thread. The immersiveness, right? Just whether you're in a, in an installation VR thing with your friends and seeing things. I think the first time I went with one of my friends to one of these VR places, um, we were doing a shooting game or something. So they did all the calibration for getting your height and your pose. But one thing that was cool was that my friend was a good deal taller than me. He was at least a head taller than me. I think he was a head and a half taller than me. And just sort of the that realization that when he said, hey dude, high five. And I turn around, I look over, and I'm about to high five him, and I realize I'm high fiving him like up there. Um, like that in itself makes a huge amount of difference in your immersiveness. Um, the other thing is the natural control, right? If you're doing interactive entertainment, whether it's holding, gripping a gun, gripping a sword, flipping switches, grabbing like a wheel and like, turning it, right? Physically kind of turning it is really like there's something to be said about doing that versus, I don't know, turning your thumb on a controller. And of course, there's the storytelling aspect, right? Just kind of being there, seeing things. Um, And again, this can be for both interactive and non-interactive. There's a bunch of like sort of 360 style movies that you can put a headset on and just kind of look around. So those are really interesting.